Welcome to the Bitcoin Core app design call number 98. It's probably the most exciting time in the whole month for everyone here. Like, such a great meeting here. The best brains, the best minds in the business getting together, discussing this incredible project. So let's hop in. We're waiting a little bit for Harold to talk to us about the receive screen, but I think in the meantime, we're just going to talk about other things that are happening. So let's hop in here in our notes. So Jakub, you wanted to talk about something? Maybe we can just gather some notes.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about? And then
So I have transaction detail screens.
Okay.
Just quickly went through them. RBF flow and how to bump in transaction when it's already on. I also did this, and I can also show batch send, and I did a few iterations. Well, I've started working on this with this previous kind of inputs we have, but this week I did a version with this new kind of inputs that Michael came up with this kind of gray boxes. I can also show this.
Yeah.
Yeah, mostly this.
Okay, awesome. Michael wants to talk about sending.
Yeah, I did a small prototype of the sending concept. I mean, in general, with these inputs and elements that have this background, I mean, that's something that we discussed a while back and we said, I think that, or the consensus was to use the line or the separator lines. But yeah, so that's something maybe that we would have to reevaluate if we want to change it, and then maybe still form an opinion about whether do you go more for this request for the receive, go more the address centric route or the request centric route. That's maybe something that we can also discuss amongst ourselves. But that could be something to talk about as well.
Yeah. Okay, let's start with Jakub's transaction detail screen designs and then go through everything.
Do you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's in activity, I think. Yeah, so I was basing it on this states that Christoph prepared. I think I added some that I thought were missing, and one or two I don't know if it's even real. So, I mean, this is just sent, so it's exactly. In previous designs we had receives. This is sent, so it's the same info just from the other side. There is bumped one, which shows old fee that is crossed out. I don't know if we need to show anything else here more. Yeah, sending, and I thought we can add a convenient button to bump the transaction if RBF is on. Then confirming, where there's at least one confirmation, it's changed to confirming. Then there's scheduled, so time locked. And I did purple here because there's also receiving time locked, which I think Christoph used the lock maybe.
Yeah, and those little icons. That was.
Yeah, that's yeah. You can decide on this later. Then there's cancelled, and then the CTA is to send again. So basically, construct a new transaction. Expired, which I'm actually not sure what is it, and I tried to like research it
I may have made that up. It was basically like your fee was so low or so that no one ever.
Yeah,
And then I don't know. At some point, does it get kicked out of the mempool? But your wallet
yeah,
still
that's
has
what
a
I thought.
copy.
Yeah,
Basically, I'm not really sure, but I just assumed it may happen. As you said earlier, some of these states may not be real,
yeah,
but for a user,
yeah.
from a user perspective, you could it like it seems like it could happen.
Yeah, and maybe I don't know. Maybe on Hover we could show more details.
Yeah.
Like this. Yeah, mempool didn't pick up because of the fee or something.
Mm.
And of course, all this that weren't confirming a block, there's no block info here, right? So there's only fee rates. Error. This is, I guess, a general error because only error doesn't say anything. But I also added rejected. So if the transaction was rejected by nodes for some reason, like invalid signatures or something, and orphaned, right? So if transaction was confirmed, but then the block was dropped basically because there was a fork on the way.
Mhm.
Then the multi-key is just info how many pending approvals are there. Then there's
Can you stay on the
go ahead.
multi-key or do you want to go through everything first and then talk about them, or do you want to?
Yeah, it's just a few ones, so maybe let's finish it. Receiving. There's a button to view payment request here if we go that way. Confirming when there's. So I actually don't know if receiving makes sense. Like, can the wallet see receiving transaction before there's one confirmation? I guess they can because they see it in mempool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So then, if there's a confirmation, there's this confirming. Then there is asymmetric validating state. And time locked as shown, and Coinbase transaction which shows block reward and transaction fees. I don't know if more info is like needed here. Yeah, and the payment request is separate.
Yeah.
So what do you want?
Oh, with actually, I'm wondering, because there's so many different screens. I wonder it's best if we all just go through on our own time and just leave comments on them. With a multi-key thingy pending one approval, I guess. Do we want to give users a button there because you basically need to download it and send it to someone else, or if once we have, I guess once we have what's it called? If we have hardware
SDT?
wallet integration, then it is that you sign it yourself or so, and you have to plug in your hardware wallet or something. So I guess in this case there will also be one
Yeah.
or more buttons, right? That's basically the point.
Yeah, definitely those, like, if you free time, you can like review maybe what info may be missing or CTAs, or like what kind of special actions we can start from this flows. That'd be awesome.
And in this one, you might order, say, like, have lists of signatures and checkboxes for the ones that were signed or something like that. But I mean, multi-sig is pretty far in the future, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess half of the states, like time
Yeah.
locked, I don't know, probably will not be on the MVP.
And I guess something important here, we have these tiny icons in the transaction list, and then we have the big versions. And there's like shape encoding and there's color coding, right? The shapes often just indicate just do you send or do you receive, but then there's also stuff like a little lock, or there's an outline one, and then you have colors which represent also send, receive, or error, or other things. And I guess we just need to make sure that system is intuitive in a way.
Maybe it's better like if it's time locked, the lock can be smaller on the side.
Yeah.
When it's bigger or something like this, so we can always indicate the direction transaction, and if there's some special state to the transaction, it can be on the side.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's like an extra little thing to design, which I think is a pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a nice exercise. I mean, for instance, here with the multisig, you could indicate the number of signatures that you need with like how do you call it? Like increments around the icon where you see, one is already green, two are like things circling, like with the block clock, the blocks. So that there could be a lot of such nice things, I think.
Yeah, which reminds me, you know how for the block clock we use the color from yellow to red. So red is like brand new block, and then it turns. It's like it's hot and then it cools down, and goes to yellow. These colors we could also use for the confirmations.
But it may be strange to use like red for fully confirmed transaction, right? Then it'd be easier to change the block to yellow, to green. The red to green, so the green is more associated with transaction sent, right? But
I mean, it could be like little segments or so that, I don't know. There might be something. I don't know exactly what it might be. But if we use that visual language in the block clock, then it might also work here in some way. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, but that's go ahead.
If you could zoom in on the one all the way at the top. Yeah, this one. This is like this is the default screen. So that details button over there all the way at the bottom, this means that, would that include everything from transaction ID all the way down to output index?
Yeah.
I click it, it closes and it goes up, like it disappears.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
And it might be collapsed by default, so you might not see them. It might be be a very simple screen, right?
Like here, right?
That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I can show you the RBF. So
does everyone know what RBF is?
Replaced by fee, apparently. I don't know that abbreviation.
Okay, so let's say you made a transaction and you paid a low fee, and you're like, this is way too slow. I hate it. No miner picks it up because you paid such a low fee. You're basically creating another transaction, doing the same thing, but with a higher fee. Right? So the second one enters the mempool. Now you have two transactions in there that kind of do the same thing, one with a higher fee, one with a lower fee. And now the miners might be like, oh, cool, I'm going to take this one with a higher fee. I'm going to mine that one. And the other one then at some point is just going to drop out, right? So it's almost like, I mean, it's a complicated way of speeding up a transaction. So speed up is really kind of the user action. Like, I need this to go faster, and I'm going to achieve this
canceling.
by spending a higher fee. Yeah.
And this screen here replaced by fee. What screen? What are they clicking on to end up at this screen?
No, this is just normal send. Although now we have a new iteration that uses different inputs, so then it'd be a bit different, because then you have more options. You click there, and I actually have this as well, so I'll show it in a second. But in this design, you have these options here. So you right click to enable replaced by fee. By default, I guess it will be always enabled, I think. And then when you already sent a transaction, I want to bump it, right? So there is an activity screen, and you could do it on the context menu inside, like I saw before, like inside transactions, because I think often users will just go into transaction and try to find CTA, right? So then they can click this, but they could do it from context menu, or I thought even we can have like a small button in the activity next to the state that you can just click to send. Then there will be this model. I guess maybe this can be improved. It's kind of tricky to combine this summary with some choice, and especially if you add a custom one. So maybe this needs some more work. But then the model would be, you can choose or click custom, then it changes to input. And you have summary, current fee, how much you increase, and the new fee. And and then if you click send, there will be also a confirmation model, and that would be it. But I can now transition to the batch, which also shows potentially the more options would be here. And then you can turn on this different variables, let's say, of transactions. So allow for transaction fee bumping. This, I thought maybe it's more understandable than replace by fee. And then if you want to send to multiple recipients, you would click here, and that would basically bring your addresses to this kind of one big box that have all addresses and amounts. It's also a bit tricky with spacing here. But let's say I fill this up, I can add more recipients, fill this updates, and I can add note to self and send, and there is a review state and approve, right? But there's one tricky thing which I wanted to ask you, because actually in core, you can, for each recipient, you can use different label, and you can, use subtract from fee separately for each transaction. So it gets much more complicated if we want to also allow, separate note to self or separate label for each transaction. So we can solve it, I guess, by adding those options under, like separating the addresses visually, which will take, more space. Oh, the note to self here then disappears because it's a general one. And then per each address, you could add in context menu, replace by fee or subtract fee from amount, or use all available balance. Then you would fill them like this. And it's tricky with spacing here. I needed to make the font smaller than here, for example. So maybe there's we could adjust it. But probably, I think at this point we should kind of decide if we want to go with this kind of type of inputs or the previous ones, because iterating on them both is very different, I think. So be good if you kind of decide on this.
I have a comment about the input field of the address. And it's also more so there's two things that come up. It's more so to encourage safe sending behavior. If we look at the old screen in the original Bitcoin Core app, the way that the address input field is shown, the entire address can then be double checked. So if the person has a screen in front of them, then they can have another screen open, and then they can double check the entire address, like every single letter. That's something that I tend to do, and I do it like 3 times. Even if I'm sending like a lower amount, I'll still check the address like 3 times. So I'm just wondering if it's possible to have an option to expand. I know that doesn't make it, it's not going to look like, if the whole address shows, it's not going to look pretty because it's going to fill the whole screen. But if there's going to be an option to expand the address so that they can double check or triple check that address before they send to it.
I guess here it could work on hover, and we could show whole address, but then the amount would have to be below.
Yeah.
So there will be not that easy way to visually compare them.
It doesn't work on mobile either.
Yeah, exactly. Or we could use, bigger layout, but that also on mobile it will not work like this.
Yeah, it's not going to look nice.
So thanks for preparing all this stuff. So here in my background is an older design where you basically include pagination.
Yeah.
So you see one transaction or one transfer in a transaction at a time, and then you just
Yeah.
go to the next one, and there's a clear separation between the transaction wide stuff like fee or RBF or whatever, right? That's below, and then you have just a very simple, pagination to go between
I
them.
almost like the pagination a little bit more, and only because that's the only reason. It's because it's going to allow me to triple check the address that I'm sending it to.
Yeah.
I think we've all experienced that there's been a lot of behavior where people are, number one, sending amounts to addresses, and then they end up being spammed or something. Not spammed. What's the word? They run with their Bitcoin. So I think it is nice to encourage safe, transaction behavior by checking the addresses.
I think a total would be missing in this one, where you do see
Yeah.
total amount. Yeah.
But I wonder, so this flow has this disadvantage that you cannot see all of them at once and compare, but maybe it's enough if we do it only on review, only on the last model.
Yeah.
And then you see them all next to each other. Maybe we don't need to have them while you're inputting them, right? That's so maybe this could be enough. It's kind of hard for me. I mean, I never sent batch transactions, so I don't know how important it is to double check everything next to each other before you actually review the whole transaction. How useful that would be.
The use cases come in terms of okay, if you think of the grant entities, people giving out grants who pay in Bitcoin, that's one use case. So for example, they would need to really double check all of the addresses because it's a lot of money going out at one time, money or Bitcoin going out at one time. And another use case could be activists as well. If activists are sending out batch transactions and they're paying, for example, salaries, then I think for their peace of mind, we allow them to do it much easier if they can really double check all those addresses before they send it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a similar question with receive screen. Do you just pack everything and into one screen and it just gets more complicated and you have to squint a little bit and focus on things? Or do we just to give one simple thing at a time? We chunk it up and everything's just a little bit bigger, but then you just click through screens more.
And I think in this is the one aspect that I didn't go into much detail yet, but I mean, especially in these batch transaction scenarios, I guess, especially when you send grants to multiple people, you will want to probably label each recipient differently, right? Because you don't want to know which amount went to which person. What probably doesn't make sense to have on all of them the use maximum button. Because if you have 3 recipients and you have 3 use maximum buttons, then
Triple
just
spend.
what it would do in the background, it would just clear the first or the others and just allocate all of it to a single entity, and so it's kind of would be kind of a weird behavior. But yeah, it's I think it's probably safer to not try to overload it too much, because even if we find a very efficient way of displaying it in one screen, I mean it breaks down after a certain number of recipients, right? I mean it's maybe okay for 5, but once it's 10 or 15, then it's I don't know.
I'm a little bit more leaning towards the design of Christoph, or I don't know who created this design, but just because it's a little bit less information overwhelm. If you imagine 4 or 5 Bitcoin, or even if we go 3 Bitcoin addresses on one screen, and you're having to, you have the other screen open, and it's very practical. You're scanning between the two, and then you're going per 4 digits or per 5. It's just very, very. This is a little bit more practical, you know. Everything's just big out there in the open.
Yeah, I
Less
mean,
restriction.
also this, what I like about this is that it allows us, whichever design we use for these inputs, it allows us to use exactly the same for multiple recipients, right? Without this special different input design with this table. We can just use exactly the same component and then just add this slider or this pagination. So this is also a nice feature of this design.
And I'm gonna throw one more curveball. Do we want to encourage safe behavior by having a warning, like, or something where if a person is sending over a certain amount of Bitcoin, say reminding them like, are you sure you would like to send this amount of Bitcoin to this address? I know that's a little bit over the top, but you know,
There's this test transaction designed by Michael that is it here? No.
Yeah, it's there. No, it's on the future editions one, the purple one.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So with high value transactions, you could have this kind of test payment mode, which would allow you to send a small transaction to that address.
Perfect.
Yeah, there is the replace by fee version of that right below it. I think that one's better to use replace by fee for this use case, where you could say, okay, you're spending a lot. Do you want to verify the address first, and then do kind of this RBF transaction? And it's more elegant, right? Because it's
it's the same transaction in a way.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not 2 times the transaction fee.
But do we want to make a decision on the batch transactions then, or should we leave it for a bit to simmer, because there's two different designs?
I mean, it's not for MVP either way, so I guess we need to decide on this style of input, which one we want to go. And yeah, at some point we need to decide. I'm actually leaning more now towards this, because I was focusing a lot to try to have this table-like, or like in Monero, like Christoph did for Monero. This kind of table-like design, right? But it's hard in our layout to make it really that efficient and that and if you can see this in that way at the review model, then maybe we don't need that here. But I guess that's an open question. Maybe we can ask to someone who actually does this type of transactions, if how important is it for them to see all of them at once when they're preparing a transaction instead of reviewing.
Yeah, I guess the full amount you would be wanting to see, but I did a batch transaction, but it was a while back in Trezor Suite, and what the hardware wallet does anyway is you have to go through each of them separately. So you have to confirm the first recipient, hit confirm, then go through the second one, hit confirm, and then at the end you sign the entire kind of transaction, right? Different hardware wallets will do it differently, but in the kind of review process or the signing process, it's probably going to be that way anyway, that you will go through it like recipient by recipient, because on the hardware wallets you don't have enough space anyway to show a lot of stuff. But I have a, a slightly different approach to the send screen in general. But basically, so the same concept, and I split up these options differently. So if I or Jakub, can I share my screen?
Yeah,
Because it's exactly the same topic, just not with the batch transactions. But I did coin selection, so we can talk about everything. So I did basically the same thing as you did, and had this same kind of layout here or treatment where I was thinking that probably you would have kind of these global settings, or more global setting. You would switch between multiple recipients and single recipients, and you could just turn on coin selection, and I would probably put it near the amount because that's what you need to select the coins to get to this amount. So kind of keep them, let's say, geographically close to each other. And then you'd probably have had these kind of different options, whatever we will need or want to have. Basically, the idea was, I noticed that you have this everything on the one accordion at the bottom, this more options thing. And this approach here is more that it's like split up to the kind of contextual place where kind of they have the impact, so that as a user I know, okay, if I want to change something with the fees, I just click on here, switch it, and that's that. And if I want to select the coins, I get some kind of screen like that. So this is where I have the least, let's say, visibility yet. But yeah, you probably want to see how much you still need to select, how much is remaining. I think this was also in a previous design. You'd also probably want to see the address itself, where the UTXO is. But if there is label, the label is probably more relevant at that point. So I would probably prioritize that visually. And you'd also have kind of this, the option to switch between to the kind of the transaction view, where you can show and hide stuff, and maybe go to the payment request. So this is basic. It doesn't really matter if it has a background or not. I think I would probably put the payment request at the very bottom, because it's, I think, the least interesting or important part of the information, and just have the details here. And I also find it somehow, when prototyping this, I think it might be better to have the control, the button, this details accordion stay at the top, because it stays at the same place. It doesn't, jump up and down in the other concept. This, where is it? Oh, it's in the activity. In this concept.
Yeah, it's like in your Figma on the left there, you have those layers panel and whatnot. It stays at the same place. It just expands what's below.
Exactly. So because here I would, to get in the original state, the button is here. I click it and then it moves down. I have to move down the mouse to close it again, and it kind of jumps around. And that's one. I think it's a bit weird. And then the second thing is in this option here, it gives you a title to what's beneath it. It kind of keeps the context a little bit better. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been up to. But the batch transactions, I didn't look at them too much so far. So that's just a little update there.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And you love boxing things in. That is definitely noticeable in your design.
Yeah, I think inside the box, but yeah, it's just I don't know. I have some kind of aversion against all these lines.
It's a
But yeah, I mean, this I mean, this also works in the other, you know, in the other treatment. So I think it's just it's just it came up because of this payment request odyssey that we're taking, right? And so I think we should just decide something and be done with it.
yeah.
New tattoo, Jakub?
Yeah, drunk tattoo made in Riga.
I see it. I see it.
Sure,
Cool.
matches the tattoo.
Yeah, there we go.
Um,
Serious. Yeah.
okay, something totally random since Mo showed some. Mo, here's to your question earlier. Like the higher you amount you enter, some old design from a long time ago, just for fun. The higher the amount you enter, the more insane becomes your screen.
Right.
So there you go. Since you wanted to draw attention to the amount that people type in,
Exactly.
and then it just screen cracks at some point. It just gets so annoying.
You could also start vibrating the phone or heating it up, you know, heating up the battery.
And like a siren is playing, like.
Exactly.
Right.
We should do that just for fun, but good luck getting developers on board. We'd have to implement it ourselves, I think. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff in the air here. So both of you guys are asking for clarity on the input field stuff, and I guess we've kind of set the direction with the screens that we have in the application already. Although I feel like we do have a little bit of inconsistency there. If I remember correctly, we have this one here, which is like traditional Webby with like an outline. Then we have a lot of doing the settings, which are basically just divider line below. I don't know. I mean, two is fine, I guess, but if we choose a third one and use it randomly, it's a bit silly. We should just try to come up with something. Regarding the backgrounds, I do see that in like Discord, which like instead of an outline, you have a background color, right? But the same idea, and you put the label inside the box. I understand that it reduces lines. Lines visually compete with text because text is lines too, so the lines need to be fairly subtle and minimal. Background colors compete with buttons a little bit, right? If this is a disabled button and this input field has the same type of color outline background, then it's like, oh, what's a button? What's an input field? You get a little bit of, just from a usability perspective, you have that going on. Personally, I try to challenge myself to get away with the least amount of visual elements possible and then use the details of each of those as effectively as possible, right? Just work with white space, font sizes, font weights, these type of things. That's what draws me towards the lines. It just feels, if it's well done, it feels a bit more elegant than boxing everything in. But I totally see the other approach as well. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. Well, what's everyone else? That's just my thoughts on this particular design question. What does everyone else think?
I don't have strong preference except that, yeah, if we decide on one, let's try to use it everywhere.
Yeah, I think in all of these settings, we just have this line-based stuff everywhere.
Yeah. So either is fine for me, but it's sometimes it then if you have it, it depends on what is a divider and what is a kind of the border of an input field. So that might be not always clear in that case.
Yeah, I mean that's the. I mean, as we moved into flat design, such a long time ago already, right? People were asking like, "Oh, I can't tell anymore what's where," and it's just a piece of colored text. Like it doesn't look like a button anymore, and all of this stuff. And these things have blurred more and more. And like one of the things that I mean, one of the big complaints for me in Android is like there's no indicator at all. Everything's just gray. You cannot tell what you're supposed to tap on, and sometimes some things you actually have to tap and hold, but you just cannot tell. You just have to try things. Yeah, right. But
Yeah.
some things it should be obvious enough, but it doesn't have to be overly obvious because I feel like people are already kind of used to. Or if you like look at things like Instagram or so, they don't use any color anymore for things. Like it's all black and white, which really lets the images shine. Yeah.
Yeah, so this, I just removed all the backgrounds here. I mean, it works well. You would need, I think we need more space between, or some more white space in between will help with the, that there's more space here at the top. But yeah, so I think it's.
Yeah, you know what one of the early. I mean, this project's now 3 years in, right? And early on, it was like my goal was to keep everything as simple as possible because there were just minimal design and developer resources. Now that we're more people and we're getting kind of going, maybe we can add a little bit more unique touches per screen. But at the beginning, I was really just make everything the same and super obvious in the least amount of interactive detail, basically. We don't necessarily have to do that now anymore. I feel like I'm still stuck in that mentality a little bit. But yeah, okay. But
I mean, what my point is, I'm fine either way. So, and if we stick with the current, I would probably increase the the spacing a little bit more to make it kind of more distinct. But
yeah,
that's that.
Yeah, okay. I mean, the other thing is we could like have two different sizes of input fields, one for the really minor stuff, just like we have different sizes on the transaction receive screen. Just kind of extend our system a little bit more instead of everything being the same.
Yeah, I think the point that it came up in the first place was this payment request screen where it actually is kind of it's not an explicit input field, but it's something that I can type into.
Yeah.
And so there you need kind of some kind of different hover state at least, and if you click into it, yeah, I mean you can still use the underline for the one that I'm typing into, which works actually pretty well. I had a prototype for that as well. So, but I think that's the source why it came up in the first place. To how do you group all of these things? So even this, right? If you remove all the backgrounds here, it still works.
Yeah, I think what we had there was you hover over dinner with Fred and Stacy, and then that turns orange as an indicator. You can edit it, and on mobile, you're just gonna have to know.
Yeah.
Or we put an icon there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel I think the conceptual more important part is whether to follow the payment request pattern or the address pattern. And I kind of feel, personally, I think the payment request pattern still makes more sense to me. It's kind of more, it's more controlled, more transparent, than just having everything on one screen for the address and then kind of refreshing addresses all the time on the same screen. It's kind of, yeah, that's just my two cents. I
Yeah.
don't know what everybody else thinks.
Yeah, so Harold, he did not pay attention to the call time. That's why he's not here. We'll just have to. He said he's on his way to the co-working space, and maybe he'll still join, and we can, if people want to stay a little bit longer. I don't know. I messaged him. He should just join when he's there. Yeah, right. That's the big thing. We have to have a theory about how we think about our users, and that leads us to the design decisions that we make. If we say Bitcoin's going to be like $10 billion worth, every transaction will be like 50 million or whatever, it's going to be a lot, then it's like, okay, everyone who uses this is going to be like really on the edge about making transactions.
No,
right?
but in general, from the UX research, people are really nervous when sending their first transaction. And sending transactions in general, like I've sent at least more than a few transactions, and I will still double and triple check and do all the things. It's just,
And if we have this mental model that this is, we want people to make deliberate decisions, we're going to take them through them one by one, which has been in the onboarding. That's why there are all these screens and all these explainers. Then it is consistent if we do the same thing in send, receive, RBF, like coin selection, whatever, right? Then it's like, okay, we'd rather break things down individual bits, guide them through one by one. And the power users, they might get a little bit annoyed by this, just going to have to do maybe we give them like the deep dive options where it's like somewhere else they can just do things super quick or not. The other alternative, like Harold comes a little bit from the other. So that, if you think about it that way, then it's not like a one screen decision. Then we have a design philosophy that carries through and we base our decisions on that. Harold's saying that people just want an address. That is a specific statement about, one particular thing. And yeah, I don't know. I'd prefer if we have a philosophy and we just kind of, base things consistently off of that. That would be my approach.
Makes sense. I would encourage.
But you can get just an address. You come to the receive tab and click the button. You don't have to do anything else, right?
Yeah.
It's, I mean, the kind of even this, let's say, more guided flow allows for this with 2 clicks to get to an address.
Yeah, and if you haven't filled anything in, the button at the bottom could just say skip. If you filled something in, it says continue.
With the design philosophy idea, let's not forget this is a beast of a product itself that allows for so many different options. So if we don't allow that complexity to exist in a very simple way, it can feel very overwhelming for people, who've never done something like this before. We now know that the interface is being used by more advanced people who have more experience, but if we want the user base to become open to more people, then we have to not hide the complexity. We include the complexity, but we just keep it in different layers. And that means that, having less stuff on one screen and allowing them to, click through to revealing the complexity.
Yeah, and then with the payment request, the mental model is, if you just want an address, you share it with someone, like you have no trace later on of what that was for in your wallet, right?
Yeah.
So with the payment request, it's like, okay, I've prepared this and I'm going to send it out, and then I'm going to see it fulfilled, and I will see what it was for. Right? That gives me peace of mind.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the ideal there. But I don't know. I mean, we just have to do our we're the designers here. We're just going to have to make our best decisions, and maybe we're wrong, and then we're just going to change it, and it'll be that. Like, it's not like a major re-architecting of the whole thing, right?
And the likelihood of the first MVP being having no glitches or no, friction in the user experience is small. I guess we'll really only know it once Like I would love to see like a full prototype of everything. I'd love to put that together, but I wouldn't even know where to start, to be honest, because
Let me see. I mean, we have the web prototype, and it's fairly easy to add stuff in there. I haven't even looked at it in a while. Payment request.
I mean, I have.
Receive.
So I think my prototype is pretty much there, I guess. I mean, you can even type stuff in.
you also include the onboarding flow as well, Michael, like the.
Yeah. So I mean, to let's say to flesh out that prototype so that it can be used for testing is probably relatively easy. To kind of polish it.
I was muted. Yeah, either way, fleshing out either one of the two is great. I'm just, curious because we have all these separate user flows, how well connected they are. Do things actually really make sense, from that sort of high level overview? And I guess
Right,
that's
that's a bigger question, right? It's easy to kind of get lost. I mean, the discussion on input fields and all that stuff are really important,
Yeah.
but they're kind of easier to get into than the stuff like, oh, does this connect properly with this other
That's what
part of
I'm
the user
curious about. How
experience somewhere
connected
else?
is everything?
I
How
think
well
it's.
connected is everything? Yeah.
I mean, I thought about this quite a bit in the prototype and the designs and everything. To me, it makes sense. It may not make sense to you, and please dive in and
Yeah.
share
Is
that.
there like one prototype that like we could like click through that's taken us through to like where we are now, or like can I create that, or just can I just use Michael's one?
But what are you looking for? I guess that's the question.
Just like as many screens until now that we've designed and agreed on. So like up until the point of screens that we've agreed on, like this is good to push to development, just all the screens before that, everything together.
No, I don't. I mean, we usually try to separate prototypes because it's a mess to kind of
Do one. Yeah.
organize a huge one in Figma.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, there's quite.
It's a huge amount of work to keep it, to keep it
You need to keep it
updated,
updated,
and
yeah.
so that usually doesn't work.
So we could right now only test like onboarding flow on its own, send on its own, receive on its own, and activity on its own. Like send at the moment, like you could go from the home screen to send right now and like go into that flow.
So what wouldn't be a problem is, I mean, since we have prototypes, or we could have prototypes for these different flows, it wouldn't be that much of a problem to stitch them together so that you can at least click around in the tabs and kind of explore this. It would still be some work to do, but it wouldn't be, extremely difficult, as long as we don't try to kind of build out every nuance of it.
No, not every nuance. No.
I mean, if you create more individual prototypes, the good thing is you can get a little bit more detailed with the main things. Like, let's say you do create a payment request, and then it actually, after you click through it, it shows up in your activity. And then you click somewhere, and then it kind of gets fulfilled, and you get a notification, right? You can create these very specific flows that show how things are connected. If you do a super generic one, you're not going to do that, right? That's too much.
No, Christoph is onto something. It's more about creating very specific use case prototypes and seeing how those flow through.
Yeah.
Yay, I want to create a payment request. Can I do that? Oh, hey, I've just received Bitcoin. I'm now on my home screen. I need to check that who it's from. Different, the most basic practical scenarios, I guess.
Well, so that's where it's helpful if per screen, per feature, we write down the not use case, user stories. Like, as a user, I want to. As a user, after creating a payment request, I want to see it in my activity. And then, just like what we do when we create those walkthrough videos, we basically take some of those and we set up the designs and then we just talk through them, right?
Right.
And these videos are basically that without a prototype, but it allows us to annotate that verbally with the logic and explain how things are meant. So the videos contain actually a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
Mm.
I
Gotta
think
make those like instead of binging, your favorite Survivor shows or so, just binge Michael's YouTube.
so. You
If
have
they're
all
on
your
YouTube.
videos, Michael. Like their videos are basically the UK stories, like what Christoph just said.
Yeah, so the one that the last ones that I shared in the channel, they follow exactly that logic, right? And
Mhm.
Christoph's as well. So it's um, and then it's for, let's say, for testing, it would really need to be kind of follow a specific scenario, which in the video it's a bit more generic, but we would have to add some more details. But I mean that's how testing works, right? You say, okay, this is the use case. Jakub did it as well with the activity thing. So
Yeah, or this one here. I mean, these are the screens from a video where I just talk from left to right, talk through them. Here you create your request. Here you copy it. Here it shows up in your activity. You just okay. Bye, Jakub.
Yeah, need to go. See you.
Yeah, goodbye. Sorry, we went over time.
All good. Well, he should say all good, not me. Anyway, so yeah, lots of stuff. Fortunately, Jakub didn't show up, but maybe next time. I guess we still have lots of design stuff.